Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Wedding Talk Show. Today we're going to be talking about something that is really cool. I actually consider it very cool, and that is finding the right venue for your wedding. Of course, you can't get married without a venue, and yeah, sometimes it's actually like difficult for people to decide on the event center they're going to use, the venue they're going to use for their wedding. Maybe sometimes they can have like multiple options. They are considering, okay, this venue has this, but this one has this. How do I marry them? Which is more important, which is not more important? And then some people are like, no, that event center, no, you can't use that one, you have to use this one. So I'm just going to give you like the breakdown of what you should look out for before you before you go ahead to pay for that venue, or when you're actually searching for a venue, what are the things you should consider. So the first thing I would say is, what is your wedding concept? Yes, that goes a long way into determining the type of venue that you're going to use, because sometimes depending on the concept you have, maybe you want something like a cathedral kind of look for your reception, or you just want something simple. Maybe you want something really dramatic, or you just know what you want, something maybe Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, or you just want something very girly, you want something very royal, very regal. And all of these things play. Your venue can actually determine what you can do with that, especially when you don't have so much budget. Your budget is not so large. If you have a very big budget, then you can actually adapt the venue to whatever you want it to be. But I mean, if you have the option of getting a venue that fits right into what you want, then why do you want to get another venue and then start customizing it, doing all this work to customize the venue to what you want it to be? So that apart from your event concept, you also have to look at your guest size. Yes, of course, when you go to search for event centers, they typically will ask you, or maybe you're just checking online on Google and you're like, oh, event centers in maybe Ikeja, event centers in Victoria Highland, event centers in Lekki, event centers in Port Harcourt. They would have like different options, and then maybe you just call the event center. You typically they'll ask you, okay, so how many guests are you looking to host? Because that would determine if that event center is right for you. And apart from, many times I have clients that say, oh, maybe our wedding is for 400 guests, and I wouldn't advise that you get an event center or a venue that seats just 400 guests banquet style, because there are other things you have to consider. Usually you can have that guest size can increase, so maybe you're moving from 400 to 450, 500, and then even apart from that, you have to take out your walkway. For some event centers are very honest, or when they're talking about the guest size or the number of the capacity of that hall, they put into consideration space for the stage, they put into consideration the walkway, movements, areas that people need to move. For some event centers, they don't. You just look at the place, okay, how many tables can we fit into this space? So if you have, or for your wedding decor, you want to have a very big walkway, then you're already eating into the space that is supposed to seat guests. So all of those things are part of the things you have to consider. So what's my guest size? So you have to go for an event center that is bigger than what you'd expect, and you don't want to have a venue where everybody is now choked. We've had people go for events and then everywhere is choked, everybody's trying to sit on a particular table and there's no movement really. When you want to stand up, you have to tell another person to excuse you. The guests don't get the right feel. Like it's not nice. If you want to go for an event, then go for a proper event, or have a proper event where guests can have good memories and not feel like, oh, I enjoyed the wedding ceremony, the music was good, food was great, but that venue, it was too small, and then it can actually come back to us, the event center, because sometimes you see reviews online say, oh, if the venue is good if you have like small guests, a small guest size, but the place is not big enough, or the place was choked and all. And you're like, well, that's not necessarily the fault of the event center. Sometimes it's not the fault of the event center, because clients can have many guests, and everybody's just trying to, let's just fix them somewhere so that you don't have your guests standing. So another thing you have to look at when you've considered your event concept, you've considered the guest size, when it now comes to the proper event center, yes, let me give you all of the things that you're supposed to look out for in this proper event center before you go ahead to pay. And I'm not even sure I introduced myself. You can imagine that. So my name is Oluwadara. I am your host. I am a wedding planner and event planner, or CEO of Eventigo. Eventigo is a wedding and event planning outfit that is currently based in Nigeria. So also to let you know that if you have questions regarding your wedding, please just send an email. Send an email to TWTS, that's the Wedding Talk Show, TWTS at myeventigo.com. Would be sure to respond to your questions on the show. Also, share this content to your friends. You have friends that are getting married, and I'll just share it. Drop a comment for us to know what has actually helped you in this podcast. So moving on, let's go. So what are the things you're supposed to check? One, you have to consider accessibility. So is the venue easy to locate? Can Google Map find it? I'm not just saying that is it on Google Maps? Can Google Map can you, based on the direction from Google Map, can you actually arrive at this event center? Because there's some places where Google Map is directing you, but you get to probably a dead end, and you have to ask, sorry, please, I'm looking for this event center. I say, oh, you have to turn, you have to enter this street, enter another street before you eventually get there. You don't want that, because if that is the experience of one person, imagine you have like 500 guests and maybe 100 out of them are having that experience. It's not nice, really. So you have to consider accessibility. Is it close to the road? Is it on a major road? Can people just walk past and find it? There are some event centers in some places that, if I were asking people maybe on the streets, they're like, I don't know, ask this person. And you're like, this event center is on this street. You've been living on the street, but you don't know the event center because maybe it's not popular, or they don't have there's no signage outside that tells people, oh, this is the place. So all of those things you have to consider. You also have to consider the environment, because safety is very key. You want people to come to your event and feel safe, not just, oh, I'm safe inside this event center or inside the venue, but also so you think about, oh, they're coming, they're leaving the event center. There are places where when it is dark, it's already rowdy, or things are not safe. You have to think about that, because trust me, your wedding will most likely end very late. So maybe you are leaving the event center by 9, you're leaving the event center by 10. You don't want a situation whereby when it is 6 o'clock, people are already like, you know what, this area is not safe, I think I should be going home now. You want them to actually like enjoy and celebrate with you. So you think about the environment, you think about safety, you think about, is the area prone to tout? Is it prone to like major fights break out? Like someone can just wake up and be like, hey boys, kilo shell me by. And no. So you have to think about that. You also have to look at, does the event center have a dedicated vendor area? Yes, because you have vendors, particularly your caterers, your drink vendors. You want to fry, you want to grill. Do they have places for this, or everybody's going to be struggling to get space inside? Because if you have to put every vendor indoor, it means that they're already taken out of your space that is supposed to be available for guests. So you have to ask, do they have a dedicated vendor area? For event centers that don't have a dedicated vendor area, it's not like it's a bad thing. You just have to consider, based on your guest size, will this work? All right, the next thing you have to look at the number of restrooms and how clean their restrooms are. So for some event centers, they in the planning of the building of the event center, they've considered, since this event center is supposed to take 1,000 guests, they have ample restrooms for the guests. For some of them, they just like, maybe it was like second thought, just think about, let's have restrooms for the event center. So you have to think about that. Then how does the restroom look? What does it look like? Can people go there? Would guests want to actually go there? Would they be comfortable using it? Are they clean? What's the smell like? All of that you should consider. You also need to consider car parking. Yes, we know you're in Lagos, and there's this set of people that are nice, and sometimes they're not so nice. We call them last mile, and maybe they just decide that, you know what, they want to just tow vehicles on a particular Saturday. Imagine you imagine you went for an event and then you came out to leave and you can't find your car. I know you're saying God forbid, that's not my portion. But just imagine that. Of course, the guests will not come to meet the clients, the celebrant, to say, you know, imagine that they towed my car. It's just going to be one of those bad experiences that guests have. So you have to think about also, is there parking? How many cars can it park? The number of cars that event center can park. Does it cater to the number of guests? I'm not saying that if you're expecting 1,000 guests, the event center should have 1,000 parking capacity. No, but you have to look at, what's the ratio? Does it work? And things like that. You also need to ask, it's okay, do they have an alternative parking space? Do they have an arrangement with last mile, for example, to say, we can park on the road? Is there security for the cars on the road? All of those things. Does the event center provide last mile that would help ease the flow of traffic? All of that you have to consider before you choose the event center. You choose a particular event center. You also need to look at the amenities provided by the event center. Yes, and when we're talking about the amenities, you have to look at, the amenities provided, do they cater to, is it like an add-on? Is it a value added service to make my event better? Or is just one of those things that you get? So I'm just going to draw a story from a particular person was trying to poach me to open an account with a bank, and I was asking, so what's the benefit of opening an account with you? And I was like, good customer service, you have an account officer, ATM card, access to loan. And I'm like, what? I already have a bank account. My bank claims to offer all of that. And you know, with Nigeria and their banks, one bank can be good today to you today, tomorrow they're already acting like they have coin. So I'm like, so what stands your bank out? And it's like, good customer service. And I'm like, see, you know what, just for customer service, just leave it out, because I know your bank, you guys have a reputation. Like almost every bank, I think every bank in Nigeria actually, they have a reputation at some point for maybe bad customer service and things like that. Every bank has issues. And it could not give me anything concrete. So you have to look at, is it just, is it a generic amenity, or there is something special about this event center? Another thing you have to look at is, do they allow external catering? Some event centers don't, especially when you're looking at an hotel, you're looking to use the space in an hotel. Usually they won't allow external catering, but you need to confirm from the event center, is external catering allowed? Or maybe the event center says, you know what, we have a caterer and that is the person that we like to use because she understands our policy, she works well with us and things like that. So you need to confirm, or do we have is external catering allowed? You also need to look at air conditioning. Yes, you don't want your guests to be in that event and then everybody's using fan. It's going to spoil your pictures. And apart from the pictures, don't mind me, apart from the pictures, you don't want guests to be sweating, because when guests are sweating, especially when they are seated, when they are dancing, like sometimes you have guests can sweat, you're not really in control of that. But if you have proper cooling, if the air conditioning is on point, then you reduce that risk of people sweating. You also need to think about or ask uninterrupted power supply. I know this is Nigeria, and for some reason in Nigeria at the moment, we can't boast of uninterrupted power supply, right? And so you have to think about that, or you need to ask about that, or how many hours of uninterrupted power supply am I entitled to? Because that would determine when you start your event and when you end your event. For most event centers in Lagos, I'm using Lagos as a case study because I understand Lagos very, very well, right? And most event centers give you uninterrupted power supply for 8 hours. So for example, if your event is starting by 12, it means that you have uninterrupted power supply from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Some event centers put on their generator 1 hour before so that the area is cool, the all is cool. Some do 30 minutes before, some do 2 hours before. So you need to find out and be sure. And some event centers, even though they promise you uninterrupted power supply, they can say, oh, you know what, we have an arrangement with PHCN, and they're not supposed to interrupt power supply for the period of your event. But you need to ask them, do you have a backup? Even for event centers that are offering uninterrupted power supply with their generators, you need to ask, okay, do you have just 1 gen or you have 2 gens? Because generator, anything can happen at any point in time. So is there a backup? You have to think about the backup plan. You also need to ask sometimes, how often do they service their generators, so that you are sure that it's not fail proof. Most of the time it is, especially when you don't have a budget to get another gen on site just in case something happens. At least you know that, oh, I did my part. I asked all of these questions. I also checked, not just asking, but I asked and I checked that all of these things are fine and we're good to go. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is review. So search online for that event center. For example, you can search Eventigo online, or the Eventigo is not an event center, and you just see like reviews, or what did people say about it, what were the good things, where were the not so good things. So you can ask for some of them. I'm not saying that if an event center has a bad review, you just go ahead and knock them off. No, for you have to look at, okay, so when was this review written? Maybe a year ago, 2 months ago. If there's a comment on it, what did the event center owner of the company say? And you can then ask about it. Oh, okay, I saw this review, I saw this comment. What have you done? Is this true? Is it false? What have you done to correct it? So those are part of things you have to look out for before you go ahead to pay for that event center. And you also have to look at your budget. Yes, you have to look at budget, because budget comes into play. I think there's one mistake that a lot of people make, or some people make, and it is that, oh, they just go ahead because your venue is like one of the first things you have to book when you set a date for your wedding. And they just go, you know what, I like this, or it fits what I want, and then they go ahead to pay and not consider, oh, what is the impact of this payment over my entire budget. For example, you have a wedding and you have 1,000 guests, your budget is 15 million, and then you've paid say 5.6 million for the event center. It means that you've taken 5.6 million, is about 33% of your entire budget. So you've taken out 33%. So what you're left with is 66%, and that's supposed to cater to food, drinks, entertainment, photography, decor, and every other thing that is going to make your event come alive, right? So you have to consider that. Is this something that I am willing to do? Does it make financial sense to commit 33% of my budget into the event center when this is my overall budget? If you have a very huge budget, why not? Please go ahead, by all means go ahead. But if you don't, then you have to consider all of these things when you are selecting a venue for your wedding. And we're going to stop here today. Thank you for listening so far. So my name, like I said earlier, is Oluwadara. I said Eventigo. My name is Oluwadara. You can follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at My Eventigo. So that's the company name. That is the company hosting this podcast. Thanks to Eventigo, we're able to do this. So follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at My Eventigo. And you can also visit our website, myeventigo.com. We actually have like blog posts that would help your wedding planning process. And please do drop a comment. You can drop a comment on our Instagram handle. I said, oh, I listened to the podcast on finding the right venue. This is how it has helped me. You can also drop a comment on this podcast so we know how this has helped you in any way. Also, do be kind enough to share this podcast. Follow this podcast so you get notified every time we post a new one, which is going to be every Friday by 9 p.m. Yes, it's going to be every Friday by 9 p.m. And do send in your questions to twts@myeventigo.com. twts@myeventigo.com. And do have a blessed weekend ahead. Love you. Wishing you a very stress-free and happy wedding planning. Bye.